Pratap Singh, you're joining us on News X. The US has reignited its ties with Pakistan after a cold spell under Imran's governance. US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken spoke to Pak's new FM Bilawal Bhutto on the phone. This comes as Russia's Lavrov congratulated Bhutto on his new post. Lavrov has also said he would be glad to welcome Bhutto in Moscow. Pak's strategic gameplay is plain as day. Pakistan is currently reeling under what can be termed as an economic emergency. Inflation and trade deficit have shot up in the nation, which would make it imperative that Pak gets financial aid from the United States. After China's debt trap, who will be the next target to bail out Pakistan is the big question. Joining us live at this point is Ambassador Suresh Kumar Goel, former diplomat. We also have Akash Jindal, senior economist, joining us live. Major General A.K. Sivaj, global strategic and defense analyst, is also live with us on the broadcast. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, joins us live as well. Let me begin with you first, Ambassador Goel, on what we should read into these messages that are coming in for the new foreign minister of Pakistan from Russia, from the United States in particular.
Well, the first thing that I see happening here is that the USA has begun to fall in the same trap of Pakistan-Afghanistan policy, which it was following earlier, maybe more than 5 years before, but in the initial years of Imran Khan and before that with Nawaz Sharif, which actually it really brought the worst out of the regional power dynamics and the power balances in the region, really. When Pentagon wants to cultivate Pakistan to balance out or to basically influence Taliban in Afghanistan, after introducing Taliban regime in Afghanistan for the simple reason that they wanted to extricate themselves from Afghanistan, leaving Afghanistan population to the mercies of Taliban. Now they want to basically cultivate Pakistan to influence Taliban, which again makes me wonder which way do American foreign policy thinkers think really. And that too after seeing basically the way they have played the cards in Europe, the way they have played the cards as far as Ukraine is concerned. So all I can do really is wonder what makes American policy makers think the way they do. Don't they ever get wiser to what Pakistan is all about? Don't they ever get wiser to the fact that Pakistan is never ever going to really get out of the kind of situation it is in, with China calling the shots in Pakistan, with Balochistan trying to take on or trying to basically send out the message to the Chinese presence. Therefore, all I can say really here is there seems to be seriously something tremendously wrong with the American policymakers if they think that by cultivating the Pakistani establishment, the new establishment, they will be able to influence or balance out the Taliban in Afghanistan, and to basically also get Pakistan away from China. I think it's simply amazing kind of thinking process, which I really cannot understand.
Yes, indeed. Professor Nalapat, come in here. Obviously, the intention of Pakistan is pretty clear. They want another bailout. They want money from the United States. Will the US take the bait? That's the big question. They obviously did have very cold relations with Pakistan under Imran Khan's prime ministership. Now, will that change? How do you see this relationship progressing?
Well, Ambassador Goel has given a very concise and a very accurate summary of the situation. But I'd only like to make a few additional points on that. And the first is, of course, as has correctly been said by the ambassador, it is basically the problem that the Americans have created for themselves in Afghanistan. Now, in Afghanistan, Biden promised that you have a reformed Taliban. You've got a moderate Taliban. And now you're seeing the Taliban, has never been reformed, has never been a moderate, which essentially makes you wonder as to the caliber of the individuals who are around Joe Biden. Now, you can't expect the President of the United States to basically go into nitty-gritty of policy. He may have some big ideas, but the policy as such will be worked out lower down. Now, what are we seeing from the Biden White House? We are seeing a complete transfer of attention away from the Indo-Pacific into Europe. We are seeing a concentration of money, resources, manpower, diplomatic heft, everything in the direction of Ukraine, which frankly is of only tangential interest to the United States, unless the US is thinking of invading Russia by land, which I don't think the US is ever going to even think of doing so. Very importantly, let's be honest about it. Ambassador Goel very correctly said that Pakistan is linked to China. Well, may I say something? That the capital that is being wooed the most by Western capitals is now China. Whether it is Johnson in the United Kingdom, whether it is Biden in the United States. I mean, they make a few obligatory remarks about China, Indo-Pacific and all that. But the reality is, both behind the scenes and also publicly, they're desperately trying to woo China away from the United States. Every day, you have reports in the media, oh, Xi Jinping is very upset about Vladimir Putin. Xi Jinping is very upset. The fact is, Xi Jinping's Communist Party leadership is very upset with Xi Jinping for being very wishy-washy on two matters. One is Taiwan as compared to Putin and Ukraine, and the other, quite frankly, is in giving full support to Vladimir Putin. Yeah, I mean, who started this campaign 2 days or so after he had a limitless agreement with Xi Jinping. Obviously, there are some very clear limits on this agreement. So I quite agree that the Americans are going to be disappointed. But and I'm wondering what the next big American mistake is going to be like. But as the ambassador has correctly pointed to, I think all of us who are friends with the United States, all of us who look for the United States, the partner in the Indo-Pacific, we are quite worried about the direction of US foreign policy. And we really wonder, I mean, if it is based on reality or fundamentals or some kind of an imaginary construct, or even worse, something that was there 70 or 50 years ago and which is completely not there now.
Major General Sivaj, quickly bring you in here on, whether the US will bite the bait once again. As I said earlier, they've seen how Pakistan has completely misused aid, money that they've given earlier. It's been used to support terrorism. Will they adopt greater safeguards this time around? Will they again come to Pakistan's financial rescue? How do you see this progressing? You're on mute, sir.
Sorry, what was that question addressed?
Major General Sivaj, that was for you, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. So what I'm saying that Donald Trump has very categorically said that in last 20 years, they have almost given $33 billion. And that money was then funneled to Taliban, which was fighting against Americans in Afghanistan. But having said so, what I feel is that the Americans do not have too many choice. You see, remember, they cannot leave US-Pak area completely at the mercy of Chinese and Pakistanis and Taliban. So as on today, what is happening in Afghanistan is, first of all, the Taliban and Pakistan, that honeymoon period is over. Second thing is, Taliban as on today is going back from the word which it has given. They are not giving any sort of protection to minorities. And as far as the women are concerned, there are no human rights given to them. Now, the main issue is the Al-Qaeda. The biggest problem as far as the Americans is concerned is that the footprints of Al-Qaeda is increasing in Afghanistan. And Al-Qaeda is the biggest threat to Americans. And they feel that if it grows in Afghanistan, it has got a reach to come back and hit them in the mainland. And today, therefore, they need Pakistan to influence what is happening in Afghanistan. So I suppose this was very much necessary even for Pakistan and also for America to get together. This is bound to happen. It will happen. And the 2-3 issues which stand out very categorically is from military to military, the America and Chinese military has been always very stronger. And their relationship was there. It was only in last 3-4 years when the relationship has not been to the best of the form. But again, they will take on because this is a requirement by both, by US as well as Pakistan. Pakistan need US to get a bailout from IMF. America needs Pakistan because it wants to influence Taliban. It does not want the Al-Qaeda to grow in Afghanistan, which can be a direct threat. The another thing is that America thinks that in case the Pakistan is left to its own, it can then drift toward the nexus of China and Russia. And that is not in the interest of America, because the problem is that this nexus can be a threat to the NATO as well as the American sphere of influence. The third thing which is there is that in case Pakistan is left, not only it goes towards China, but it directly goes into the lap of Russia. That's the thought process. Because as on today, they start having excise with each other. M17 and M35 have been also promised by the Russians. Though I agree, the Russian also businessmen, they know it, that Pakistan do not have a purchasing power and they can never antagonize India. But certainly that nexus can grow. So I feel there is a requirement from America's side that they want to build up that, again, relationship with Pakistan, basically to influence Taliban in Afghanistan and also to ensure that the Al-Qaeda do not grow more than its size from Afghanistan. And as far as Pakistan is concerned, it needs America. It has been always close to America. It is always tried on American aid. It wants now a bailout from IMF, which can be only given under the influence of US. And also they want sort of other military aid from Pakistan, which has been stopped in last about 5-6 years. I suppose it is a win-win situation for both. They will do it. Whether it does not suit to others, that does not make a difference. America will try to support Pakistan and Pakistan will try to take maximum support from America and also playing a China card to its advantage. Uday.
Yes, let me in fact also get in then, Mr. Jindal at this point, Akash Jindal, on the very, very difficult financial situation Pakistan has found itself in and how they're really planning to get out of it, if at all.
I don't think Pakistan has any chance by any means of getting out of this messy financial situation. Firstly, what I think is when you talk about US-Pakistan relations, I think US is not doing much but trying to use Pakistan merely as a tool because US wants to have some influence in this area because of Afghanistan, Al-Qaeda, China, and they want to have some intervention, some interference in this area. But I don't think this is going to stretch up to that level that US would give them a huge loan. You have asked me about the economy of Pakistan. Let me share some facts. Today, the state of Pakistan economy, we all know the high level of debt and that they are not in a position to service that debt. But apart from that, some other facts. Now, US dollar is trading in Pakistan as 187 rupees. A liter of petrol in Pakistan is being sold at 150 rupees plus. And the rate of inflation in Pakistan is 12.6%. I mean, India also, we had high inflation, 6.95% CPI, but we have increased our repo rate and we are going to reduce inflation now. Then see the state of things where Pakistan has led itself into. Now, Pakistan kept on borrowing money from China, rather China kept on lending money to Pakistan for that CPAC project. And China has sunk its money. Now, Pakistan, the rate of interest at which they borrowed, anybody who understands infrastructure funding throughout the world, it's a laughable rate. 3.76% is the high rate of interest at which Pakistan has borrowed money from China for that unviable, almost near to closure CPAC project. Now see, I'll give you an example of Pakistan's financial mess by comparing that infrastructure funding project to Pakistan. Pakistan borrowed at 3.76% from China in we in India, we had a huge infrastructure. We have borrowed from Japan at 0.1%. Now, this is the mistakes which Pakistan commits. So I don't think US is going to stretch this relationship up to that level that they are going to lend Pakistan huge amount of money so that Pakistan can borrow from US and ultimately pay back to China that so high, so exaggerated rate of interest, aggravated rate of interest. So I don't think it suits US in any manner. As far as the IMF also concerned, they have certain conditions for further bailout. So what I think would happen ultimately is that there would be certain breather loans, small quantum of loans from US, from IMF to Pakistan. But I don't think that what we have seen, the relationship being built up after the new government has come power into Pakistan between US and Pakistan, that it would stretch up to that level that we may expect huge amounts from IMF or huge amounts from US for Pakistan, because Pakistan, the financial affairs are really in a mess, and with that China liability going to be there on their heads in the coming months and years, Pakistan is going to be in a deeper financial mess. Now, of course, Pakistan is now acknowledging India's economic growth. The former Prime Minister Imran Khan, ex-Prime Minister Imran Khan, just 2-3 months prior to when he left office, he at a IT event, when he was inaugurating an IT event in Lahore, he praised India's IT. The words he used was, "Hamara hamsaya Hindustan IT mein kitna aage nikal gaya." He even quoted India's IT exports. So Pakistan knows where it is, and US also knows the financial mess Pakistan is. So I think US would use Pakistan as a tool for itself, because US wants to have some say in that area. As far as Pakistan's finances are concerned, Pakistan's economy is concerned, I don't think they can expect anything positive, much positive from this. See, over the business model of Pakistan or the economic funding of Pakistan, what they have been following is they have been taking huge loans in all the past 30-40 years. And what have been they've been doing? The huge loans, that money has been used for massive corruption deals. Now, if I take you back in the economic history of Pakistan, except for the decade in 60s, Pakistan's economy has never thrived. In 1972, when Zulfikar Ali Bhutto started that nationalization drive, Pakistan economy has been going down since then. Of course, Nawaz Sharif tried stint with privatization. That also didn't work. So I think except for the first 7-8 years of 60s, prior to the years of Yahya Khan and General Rani, that was the time Pakistan's economy progressed. Otherwise, Pakistan's economy doesn't make any economic sense in any way. And this relationship building by US, I don't think it's going to get Pakistan too much of financial aid, maybe some amount of breather loans. So Pakistan still has to identify and find out ways which are very less to drive out of the financial mess which it has itself led in. That's what my take is.
Professor Madhav Nalapad, let me quickly rope you back in here on this Russia angle emerging as well, with Lavrov also wishing Bhutto well and saying that he'd be very happy to host the new Pakistan government very soon in Moscow. What is this Russia-Pak tango also building up? Interestingly, Imran Khan pegged one of the reasons for the US being unhappy with him to his visit to Russia on the day the war was announced.
Well, look, the fact of the matter is that Pakistan is very close to China, and China and Russia are allies of each other. There's no question about it. In the military sphere, for example, they are the closest allies of each other. It's a different matter in the Ukraine war. China is keeping completely aloof. But the reality is that they are close military allies. They share information, they share intelligence, and there are a lot of joint activities that they do, including in the United States and in Europe. So that's a fact. But let me just get back to Ambassador Goel's point, and that is that, it is quite correct that the Taliban are destroying the lives of the people of Afghanistan. A lot of people have lost their lives, who had supported the Americans, who had supported NATO, and now they are paid with their lives. Their families are paid with their freedom, with their assets for that crime in the eyes of the Taliban. All that is happening. The country is visibly falling apart. And the only good news for those responsible for this, mainly, if I may say so, the White House under Joe Biden, is that so far Western media have not really paid very much attention to the horror that is unfolded in Afghanistan. They are talking about a few thousand people who have died in Ukraine, and everybody dying is a tragedy. But, 30, 40, 50,000 people at the minimum have died in Afghanistan since the takeover on August 15th last year of the Taliban. So, it's only a question of time before American media come to that. You remember that in Vietnam, the administration got a free ride. Suddenly the media woke up, and thereafter the administration was in trouble. The same thing is going to happen on this Ukraine conflict, in which after every day you are reporting that Russia is about to collapse, Putin is about to collapse, and that's happening week by week, month by month. So the same thing in Afghanistan. That it's a new Taliban, reformed Taliban, but even Western media today has got to report things like the new restrictions on women. They're not reporting the house-to-house searches, the killings, the murders of those who supported NATO. They're not reporting that. But pretty soon, I think they're going to be reporting that as well. So I think once again, the Americans have fallen into a trap of believing that the Pakistan military is part of the solution rather than part of the problem. George Bush entered into that particular delusion, and George Bush, through moves like the removal of hardened Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and their Pakistan trainers from Kunduz, he allowed that. George Bush allowed that. He made it inevitable that poor Biden had to surrender to a Taliban. It began with George Bush. So the same mistake is now being repeated by Biden. And I don't know who these people are, the so-called experts in Afghanistan, but it's obvious they haven't changed. Disaster after disaster, mistake after mistake, and president after president goes by their faulty advice.
Yes, let me in fact quickly get a closing word also from Ambassador Goyal on the way things are headed with this Russia-China-Pak axis also developing, and a quick closing comment as well based on what you've heard from the other panelists as well. Ambassador Goyal.
Thank you, Uday. Uday, what actually surprises me, in fact shocks me, is that the Biden administration is still trying to convert a donkey into a zebra, despite Imran Khan himself having clearly enunciated the impossibility of this thing. Taliban is not going to change the colors. Pakistani politics, Pakistani economy is not going to change with the kind of policies they are adopting. Please remember, Al-Qaeda head Osama bin Laden was hiding in Pakistan. Please remember that Al-Qaeda was actually supported by Pakistan. Taliban came back to Afghanistan with the help of Pakistan. Please remember all that. The Doha Agreement was actually a surrender document by Pakistan, by the USA to Taliban. Therefore, the word used by Mr. Madhav Nalpa, delusion. America seems to be living in a delusion despite what the reality is. And we can all see the reality. It is loose. Ukraine clearly illustrates the futility of supporting one cause, a lost cause, when we know that it's not really going to work out. Pakistan-China axis is a thing of reality. It's going to remain. Pakistan is totally beholden to China. It has been beholden to China when Pakistan was actually hosting Al-Qaeda, even at that time. Please remember that USA was able to cultivate China through Pakistan. The first visit to China took place through Pakistan when Kissinger went to China. Therefore, we are living in a delusion if we think that by cultivating Pakistan, China-Pakistan axis will change, or Afghanistan situation will change, or anything will change. Pakistan is not going to change. Pakistan was an ask will remain an as. It will not turn into a
Okay.
zebra.
Okay, let's leave it at that. My thanks to all of our guests for joining us.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.